All right, so today we're going to be setting up Devise token Auth and making a React on Rails app from the start. Feel free to jump in if you guys have any questions anywhere along the way. I'm just kind of going to go step by step. We're going to be using some hooks and some classes just to kind of use what we already know and then build upon that. So to begin, let's open up an iTerm, and then we want to create a new project. Feel free to follow along if you want to. It's up to you. Sometimes I find it easier just to listen rather than try and follow along and spend half your time copying and pasting things. So I'd actually recommend just watching and then jumping into any questions. So to begin, let's do Rails new, call this EPL review, and I'll probably be working on this project for the rest of the cohort. And then we need, so this is just for the beginning.
Did you do a screen share?
Oh, I'm not even sharing my screen yet.
Nope, no worries.
Thank you. Is that sharing this screen with the?
Yeah, we can see that.
Is
yeah,
this right? Okay. Okay. So you're seeing my iTerm just at the background? Or are you seeing this over here?
We see iTerm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Doesn't like show what one it is. All right, so Rails, new, and then we have the name of the app. We're going to call it DPL review. And then we need to identify the database. So we'll have that be Postgres. And then we want to denote that this will be an API. We're going to route the views to, we're just going to have it handle the backend, is what it means by putting the API tag in. So run that. It does its thing. And then the first thing we want to do is open up our IDE. So we'll cd into the project folder, and we'll open our editor. And here we go. Okay. So our first housekeeping order of business is to go to our gem file and add the necessary gems. So we're looking in the development section, and we want to take away bybug because I don't know how to use that. And we've been using pry. That one seems to work pretty good. And then I'm also going to add faker because I feel like I'm going to end up using that at some point. But not in JavaScript, so we don't need semicolons. And then we also want the Devise token auth. So that's not in the development section. That's over in like the main gem section. And that's Devise underscore token auth. And you can just look this up in the lecture if you need to, like, you don't have to obviously memorize anything. Just kind of knowing like how to go through it and what the concepts are will help you more than like actually memorizing what the things are. Those will kind of come to you. So then we have our, now is this big enough? Can you guys see this? Or maybe it'll help if I maximize it. Is that a little better?
Yeah.
I think they're both good. Whatever like works easier for you.
Okay. All right, I'll keep it maximum. I think that's what they've done in the past. Okay, then what we want to do is do a bundle.
Real quick, John's saying I wouldn't mind if you increase the size. That might be easier.
Okay. How about this? Should I increase the font size on this?
Maybe two more, just two more up. That's perfect.
That better? Okay, sweet. All right, so we need to do a bundle or a bundle install. Those are the same thing. And then it's added them. You can look back through to make sure that they're actually in there, but here we have Devise token auth, faker, and pry. So they've been added. Next thing we need to do is make sure we create our database. If we try and run the Devise token install command without creating our database, it'll really have problems. It'll like kind of halfway do something, and it's important to do that at this point. So Rails db create. This will create our database. Make sure you have Postgres running. And there it is. So the next thing we do, just kind of following the lecture notes, is we copy in this command. We have the Devise token auth install. And that will do a lot of things for us without us having to do them. The lecture kind of goes into all those things, but basically going back to the code, when we run that, we can kind of see that it will create a user model here. It what else does it do in the database? It creates a migration to create this table. So when we migrate, it will add that in there. So the next thing that the documentation says for us is we have to add one line to the user model.
And real quick, can you also increase the size, the text size in this one as well?
Sure. Let's see if that's. Oh, nice. Is that
Yeah,
better?
that's great.
Okay.
Now it's a little big, but it's just fine.
Let's do that. Oh,
Yeah, that's perfect.
okay, awesome. Okay, and then so we need to add one little line in here that some of this stuff when you're following this documentation, like you don't really have to know exactly what it does. You just have to do it. Well, that's where I'm at. And then the next thing it says for us to do is to migrate. So, or sorry, to create a new migration. So right now we have this migration, which is going to create the user table. And then the next migration we need is one we're going to create. So we run this one. Oh, let's see, Rails G migration. And then we need to add trackable to users. And so how migration works, if you guys aren't familiar, is this will say we're going to add a table trackable or a column trackable to the user table. And the migration just says that it's something that'll update the database. It's a Rails function that'll update the database as soon as you do a Rails DB migrate. So if we add that migration, we can see that it's in there. Add trackable users. However, we need to amend it and add some stuff in there. We'll just copy and paste that. And that's what you need. So now we have our two migrations, and so as soon as we migrate, it'll first do this one. These actually have like timestamps on them. It does the one that has the earlier timestamp. That's a date, 2020. That's like an earlier time than the second one because it needs this one to be done before that one. You don't have to really know how that works, but it's kind of interesting. And then we do a Rails DB migrate. And we didn't get any errors, which is good. So you can see that it's created the users table, and then it did that. And then it added trackable to users. We want to check to see if it's done all those things. We can go to our schema and see that the users table was here, and the trackable, these attributes, sign in, current sign in, is right here, current sign in. So we've added those in there. So far so good. Next, we're going to start building our client side, or our React side, which will be in a client folder. So that's the front end. So because as you can see now, we only have the back end here. So in order to do that, we will do create React app. Make sure that we're in our folder that is the Rails project. And our convention we've been using is calling it client. So we will do that and press enter. And then you just kind of sit back and wait for this to happen. I've been
Which
using the,
lecture are you following?
so I'm in the authentication with React. Here, I'll Slack out the it's just in the main channel there. And then depending on your internet and your computer speed. All right, nice. So then there we have it. Let's check to see if we created it. And there is our client folder. So we've got client, doesn't have anything in it yet. Let's go ahead and create some folders while we're in here. We need, whoops, not in this one. We want to be in the source. Let's do a components folder. And let's do the providers folder. And then inside of our components folder, let's do a couple folders. I want a home folder that'll kind of be like where the home page lives. And then I also want a shared folder. I'd be careful with the shared folders, like going into your group projects. For bigger stuff, the shared folders can get kind of insane and overfill. And I don't know, I'm just going to put like all the auths, a lot of the auth stuff in there in the nav bar, but shared folders can be kind of a disaster where you're just like taking them out and putting them into new folders eventually. But with that being said, I'm still making one. Let's also add some dependencies to our React project so that this will work. We're going to want Axios so we can do API calls. I want styled components because I'm going to need that later. And then I also want React Router DOM so we can go between pages. And then we also eventually in this tutorial we'll need Devise Axios because that does some cool stuff that I don't know how to explain, but we need it as well. So add all those ones.
And real quick, why did you do Devise and then dash Axios? I don't think I've seen that before.
So Devise Axios is just the name of the package that we needed to add. I think that's just like what it's named. I mean, when you type in the name, it actually like searches inside the yarn, like the yarn library, it'll pull it up by these names. And like if you type like style components 2, it might not pull up the right thing. So that the actual name of the package is Devise Axios. It uses like it configures the middleware to like go between the client and the server. I don't exactly know how it works, but that's really, it is different than Axios. Axios is just for doing the API calls. Devise Axios works with I think it works with the tokens, so that the way that it handles like the encryption. That's my best guess.
I got it. Thank
Does that
you.
answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, sweet. So those have all successfully been implemented. Let's now start adding in. Well, let's see. Let's add in the auth provider. So I guess at this point, it'd be nice to see like if it's working, just to kind of test it out, like make sure we've done everything right. So let's actually go. Let's add in let's start building out our like app.js because we don't need this. Let's run it to see if it's working. So I'm gonna split my window here. I do Command Shift D. It's a really nice split. command. It keeps your same, should keep your same folder. You might have to change the preferences on that inside of iTerm. Then you've got your client here, so you can run your yarn commands. And then you have the backend, so you can do your server. Now we can't really test to see if our server is working because we haven't set anything up yet, but the front end's working. Everything turns on. It's a good sign. It's good to just like check as you go. So let's start by like working on our app.js and our index. So the first thing we do with this is we don't really want any of this here. That's just all boilerplate stuff that Create React app puts in. We don't really need any of that. Don't need the logo. We're gonna do this without any like bootstrap or any styles, any custom style, or we're gonna do it all with custom styling because I think that it's simpler just to like build something out later on. If you want to be able to like make it do exactly what you want, you kind of become limited by having those styling libraries. So for the app.js, let's see, the first thing that we want to do is I'm just going to kind of think of, you know, what do I want in this? In the app, we want the Nav Bar. I'm going to write this all out here. So we want login, register, Nav Bar, our home page. We need no match. We need fetch user in there, and then we need protected route, which works with the React router. Oh yeah, so then we also need React router. And in the notes, we have a lot of the stuff like built out for us. So we're kind of just copying and pasting from here, but I'm gonna go through and like change some things around so it's a little more interesting. And so in the spirit of like test as we go, we can kind of put like the, you know, you can put something in here. I kind of like to do like hello home, make sure everything's still working. And oh, something. I thought I deleted all that. Maybe restart my server. There you go. I don't know what that was about, but so now, you know, we can see that we've edited that. So let's go through and start with the auth provider. That's a good place to start because we know we're going to need that. So here we are in the provider folder. We're going to do a new file called auth provider. And we need to import React from React. And then we don't really need to know how to build this out. It's at this point, it's like easy just to kind of copy and paste it. But I think that if something's already a class component and you want to convert it into a hook, if it's working, if it isn't broken, there's really no point in fixing it because class components work basically the same as functional components. So really we can just keep this one the same. The one difference is if like you're going to be using class components later, you have to keep the consumer exported. If you're doing all hooks, you can actually only need just the context. You can leave this one out, but I'll show you more of that later. So here we've got the register, the login. This one you can basically just copy from the lecture. And this has got like everything we need. So we've got Axios, React, and we'll kind of test this out to see if it works as we go, but basically that's the auth provider. Next, we want to, let's go to our index.js, and we need to wrap this in the auth provider. First thing I do here, just like housekeeping, is we don't use the service worker. We can take that out. We're not using any of this styling. We don't need index. We might want that to work with that later, but right now we're just going to use style components for everything. So we need to wrap our auth provider in this. And I have this cool auto import on that just like does the path there. Saves me some thoughts. It's kind of neat. It's a neat little extension. But it also has its like pitfalls. We found like a super good version of it. So then we've got the auth provider. We need to wrap our app inside of it. That way, everything that the auth provider has can be accessed inside the app, which is basically like it's a higher order component of the app. And there's the app provider. So let's go, let's see, do we need anything else for our index right now? I can't think of it off the top of my head, so let's just keep going and adding in the other components that we need. Next, let's put a home in there, and we'll do home.js. So import React. And in this one, we're going to want to be able to access the auth provider through context. We're going to put use context up there, and from React, export default. Nope. It doesn't have the word in there yet, so it doesn't know what to do with it. And we're going to make this into a functional component, and we will return simply hello home. That'll show us that the home is being rendered properly. Let's go back to our app, and yes, this should have said hello app. Instead of that, we will put the home component in there. And, oh nice, it imported it there. And that will be, and then just making sure we've done everything right. Oh, it doesn't like something. Looks like my server has exited for some reason. I might need to upgrade my node stuff. I'm not sure why I keep doing it. But there we go. Okay, so there's home and a very obtuse font, which we will change later. But it's working so far. So that's our home component. Next, let's go ahead and get our, let's see. Let's put in React Router DOM in here so we can use routing and have it make a login page and a registry page. So we need switch and route from React Router DOM. And then this, how we set this up, it's just all the same on every one, but you have a switch and you have the route exact path equals nothing, basically. We call that component home. And that will take us to a home, and actually it's a self-closing tag. And then we're going to want a couple extra ones in here at some point, so I might have to put them in now. We want one of them to be login, and this one we're going to change to a protected route. Because we only want the home page to be accessed when the user's logged in. This one will be, we'll call it login. Whatever you put here becomes the URL. Register, component, register. It doesn't know, these don't exist yet, so it's a little upset. Then we've got some kind of error here. I don't know what it is exactly. Home switch. Oh, okay, I got it. It needs to be, this is just the JSX thing where you have to have these fragments or divs around everything. And then we also are going to want Nav Bar up here. That'll come at some point. And that's a component. Let's put the Nav Bar in while we're thinking about it. Sometimes what I like to do is I'll put it like this. I'll write out Nav Bar, and then I'll build out the component, and then I'll import it in a second. So let's put Nav Bar in shared. And for the Nav Bar, let's think about how we want to build this out. Did James make one with hooks for a Nav Bar? Anyone?
Yes.
He did? Okay. Cool. Would it be helpful if I went over how to make a Nav Bar with hooks, or do you guys just want to?
Let me actually look that up.
Okay.
I think it would be
No,
helpful.
he didn't.
Yeah, I don't think he did.
Okay, I'll just go from scratch in this. This might be more useful than just copying and pasting. So for the Nav Bar, let's import React. I'm going to copy and paste some of it that I've already talked about. So we're going to do that. So we need the auth context. We need to be able to access that in our Nav Bar so we can show whether we're logged in or logged out. So we're going to import that. And that's just from the auth provider. My auto import is mildly effective at doing this. And then we also want to be able to access links, and with router, that enables the component to be wrapped in, to be able to be accessed as a route on the page. So when we say, or let's see, what does that mean? With router. I don't know exactly how to explain that, but we need with router. I can figure it out and explain that next time. But we need that from React router.
For the history?
Is that what it does? It adds the history to it?
So I learned that it uses the history for the Nav Bar.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, a lot of this stuff, like, especially like, because I mean, I just like finished the course like 2 months ago. Is you know like what to do, but you don't exactly know like why it works or why you should do it. You're just like, oh yeah, I gotta like put that in there. That's a lot of it until like you run into like something that breaks and you have to like figure out how to fix it, and then you're doing exactly why it works. So I think at this point, like where you guys are at when you're just like being sort of shotgunned with so much stuff all at once. Sometimes it's best just to like try and pick up what you can and figure out the basics, and then worry about like all the details later. But for sure, it'll all come eventually. Okay, so then we need to say what this is. So we're calling this Nav Bar, and we're going to want props in here. And then
And preach to that, by the way, what you were saying about learning it all at once.
yeah, yeah, it's a lot of stuff, you know, and like I can't imagine doing like the full time where you have to like you just have nonstop like homework and stuff. And it really seems never ending. But
It's painful.
yeah,
It's painful.
so then this is our nav bar function here, and we want to export this so we can access it in our app. As soon as I built out this, I go back to the app, and then I finish importing it there. And voila, there we go. And then we have the nav bar. So let's build out the nav bar. So the first thing we want to do is we want to have like two different returns basically. We want to have like one if you're logged in and one if you're not logged in. And there's a lot of different ways to do this. Like kind of a simple way to do it is instead of having like the return here and then just saying, you know, stuff on the page, you can actually have like returns inside of if statements. So you can say if this, then return, and it'll return that. There we go. And then it'll return like condition is true. This is the condition. And then you can put like an else if here. And you need to specify it. Or you could even do else because you're either going to be logged in or not, you're not logged in. Then you can do return stuff to show when logged out. So let's make this a little, this will say if we're logged in. The condition is true, is returning you are logged in. Else, we're going to show stuff when you're logged out. So kind of what I want to put in here is we're going to give us some space to work with. So if you're logged in, we want to have a link to the home. Sometimes, you know, you end up having like redundancy in these, and I'm not sure like the best way to build these out, but as far as like, sometimes it's just better to do it the way that makes sense to you. So we want a link to home, and then we also want a log out button. This might have made more sense if I did it the other way first, but we could make it a link. For now, I'm just gonna make it a button because it's kind of easier to make you can make like a link with like a on-click, a div that has an on-click, but a button just is a simpler way of looking at it first. So then let's make the stub here for the button. Button, handle, click. We're going to figure out what this button needs to do, but it's going to say log out. So that's if you're logged in. And we don't know exactly how to get this yet, but we're going to figure that out. And then if you're not logged in, which will be the rest of this. Oh, I know why this is giving me problems. They don't have the parentheses here. There we go. And then let's make this look nice. No, lose our mind with our formatting. Okay, so this first it needs these fragments in order to be happy. Then we will have when we first hit it, before we're logged in, we're going to have 3 different links, and we want a link to home, a link to login, and a link to register. So if this doesn't make sense, stop me and ask me any questions. But basically, this will show this if you're not logged in, and then if you are logged in, and we'll figure out how this. We need to figure out how to display, how to check if we are logged, if user is logged in. And so let's go back to our auth provider. So we've got this auth context here. And if the user's logged in, we actually will know whether or not we'll have this value called authenticated, and it'll either be true or not true. So we can then go back to our nav bar and say, okay, we're going to use this context in here. So we've got this nice hook where we say, we'll call it auth as the constant, or we could call it auth context. And we will say auth context is equal to use context, auth context. So we're using the context that we've created here in the auth provider. And we're able to then access all these values here, which is super great, because then we can say if auth context dot authenticated is true. So this, then do this. So this is the same thing as typing this. When something is in a conditional statement by itself, it means that if it's true.
Ooh, that makes sense.
So this is equal to that. You just don't have to write it equals true. You can just say that. You'll run into that a lot. So then we're checking if we're authenticated, show this, return this, else return this. So that should be exactly what we need. We'll kind of clean up what we're doing. So we got that. So that's pretty much our nav bar. I mean, the only thing we forgot is this thing I don't really know how to explain with router, nav bar. We just need that though. There's our nav bar, and I think that it should be. Let's go ahead and look on our page and see if it's there. Oh, doesn't like it. Okay, so this unexpected token error. How's my font size on this?
I think this size is fine for me.
Okay, all right, cool. So that usually has to do with just like those fragments a lot of times. So let's go back to our app. Oh yeah, I think it just doesn't, we just don't want this home to be here. I think that might be it. Oh, I don't know why this keeps crashing on me, but here we go. Handle click is not defined. So that's in our nav bar. It's because we haven't defined what to do if you click on the logout button. So let's define that here. So you can do handle click inline. Either way. Sometimes if there's more stuff going on, it's simpler to do it in its own like function up here. So then the handle click. So when we're logged out, so then we need to do a function in the auth provider, which is handle logout. So we can access this here. So we will go back to our nav bar and say auth context dot handle logout, and then you need to put props dot history here because that takes you back to the page that you were on previously, I think. Okay, cool. So now we're back here. More errors. Login, register, not defined. So let's move on and work on those components. So we're just gonna, for the most part, copy and paste the login and register. I think James has built out some hook stuff. I'll do register. I have it as a class-based component. I'm gonna copy it and then kind of explain it. And then I'll do, let's put them in shared. Register.js. Okay, the register, you don't really need to like, eventually you'll want to like know what's going on here if you end up doing like styling or changing around your registration so it has different parameters other than your username and password or your email and password. But for now, it's just a form. I've changed it so the styling is not like a styling library. So we're just using these HTML inputs. And then we're in the auth consumer mode here, so you need all this wrapped. But yeah, that's basically the register. And we want to add that in to here. So it might auto import it. Oh, nope, didn't do it. Let's just add it. Register from /share/register. And while we're here, let's import login. Login doesn't exist yet, but it will. So let's do the login component. And I actually made the login with hooks. Do you want me to go over the login one, like how to make it, or should I copy and paste it? What do you guys feel like doing?
Could you go over it?
Yeah, for sure. So let's start from the top. We want to import React from React. And let's export default login. We'll do login. And return something in there so you can see it if we're testing as we go. I think we could have tested at this point. Let's see. We might be able to. Let's see where we're at here. Oh, register is not defined. App. That's because we didn't capitalize it. So components have to be capitalized, otherwise React doesn't know how to render them. Let's see if that should not use with router outside of a router. I think that has to do with the app. Let's see, register. One sec. That's in the nav bar with router outside of the router. Nav bar. I wonder what's going on here. So this doesn't like that I'm outside of a router. But I have it working before. Let me check my notes here. Oh, I know. I haven't wrapped my index in the browser router. That's our problem here. So we need to import browser router. Let me see how to spell this. So we were trying to use the React router, but we hadn't imported it here and wrapped it around our index so that none of the components underneath it could access it. So we don't need it in Auth. We don't need it in the providers because those aren't being rendered. So it's just here inside of that. So the way this works is this one, everything inside of the Auth provider is can access the Auth provider, everything inside the browser router, so the app can access that. And then the app is the house for all of these other components, or the wrapper, I guess. So now let's see if it works. I have to figure out why that's stopping so much.
I guess I've never seen a computer crash so often.
Right? I must have stage fright for this first time. Okay, sweet. So there it is. It'd be helpful if we put like a div in there. So we could see what, you know, a little bit of spacing. And actually, I think I like that font instead of that serif font a little bit better. So let's put that back in. Let's put a little bit of that CSS back in. Yeah, that's a little bit nicer. I didn't realize I would take that out if I took that out. Okay, so let's for our home component, let's just put a div here and put I think that'll put it down. Okay, that's a little more readable. We could put like padding around it too. So that's something that I kind of like to do, but we'll get into that in a second. Let's get this off working first. So now I've got the home. We have the, let's go on and put we've got to put a fetch user in. Fetch user is basically what it does is it validates the tokens. So if you guys remember how tokens work, is the password is like encrypted into like a longer sort of translated thing, which is called a token. And this fetch user, it handles how those tokens are like passed around. So you have to wrap everything in the fetch user. And so sorry, was someone saying something?
Sorry, I was like whispering.
Okay. So we want our fetch user here. And now so I type it there where I want it. I leave it red, and then I put it here in the shared folder. We'll do new file, fetch user.js. This is just one that I'm copying from the notes because it's a lot easier just to do that. I don't really understand how this one works. I could probably figure it out, but there's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's doing all these like it's checking the tokens. It's going to your local storage, which is like on your computer, and getting this access token. It's really not necessary to understand this at this point, because it doesn't like get you where you need to go. So all we need to know is that it works. So back to the app, we go to fetch user, and let's get it to import, maybe. Okay, cool. Since it was exported as connected fetch user, it wants to do that. But it needs to be wrapped around the whole thing. And we'll make everything look nice. Okay, so there's fetch user. And I think all we need is protected route. So that's the last one. Protected route is what enables a route to be only accessed by a user. And we will just copy this one into the shared folder. So protected route isn't actually like a component that we're accessing. We're just exporting protected route, and then we're going into our app and we're importing protected route. I think we can import it like that. Okay, it's a default export, so you don't have to import it as an object. Protected route from the place that it's from. And then how we can use it is we write the word protected route, and then this protected route accesses this import, which is in this file, and it sees if we're authenticated, then it will render that component. Otherwise, it will redirect us to wherever we want to go. So say we want to go to some, like, not the login page, we want to go to like the splash screen that says something else, we can change this here. You know, we can say wherever we want to go. So that's the one thing you want to know about protected route, is like where the redirect goes and how to change that. So let's see if this is working. So we've made our home component protected route, and we're redirecting to the login. So on the login, it'll say hello login. So there it is. So try to go to home, doesn't work. So you can see that we're at the login. We type it in home, back at the login. So let's go to our login component and finish building that out. And we want to do that from scratch. Okay, so what do we need here? So we need the email. So we're going to set that as a state. There's a couple ways you can do this with hooks. You can have like the state be like one value where it's value and then child of that object, or one of the values of that object is like email, or you can just set it as two different ones. For something that has like less than 3 different attributes that you're working with, it's probably easier just to do it individually rather than have it be an object called value and inside of that have an object called email and set email. Or you'd have just email. So we have this is use state. We can get to import, right? If we can't, we will, there we go. So and let's have the default state be blank. And then we will do the same for password, set password. Have that be blank. And then we want to display a form here. So we're just going to do like really simple basic HTML because we can then add styling to it later. So forms need an on submit, and we will have this be handle submit. We also need inside of our form, if a form only has one input, you can actually press enter and you don't have to have a submit button. But otherwise, you will need a button. You can do it a couple different ways. You can do input type equals submit, and then you can have like a value, or what is it, title? Type, I think it's title equals, no, it is value. Value equals, you just call this like login or something. That'll actually say what it is on the button. This can be self-closing. So this is like one way to just make a real like light form. And then input, you don't, if it's just a text input, you don't have to put what the type is. We need an on change here. And we're going to have this one be handle. We'll actually do this inline. So you guys, I've seen you guys working on this, so you kind of know what's going on. So we need to have the event, and we want to set email to d.target.value. That's the on change. That's the standard on change for an input. We also need to have what the value is, which is email. And that email here is this email value there. So we're changing it on change. And then we can put like a placeholder here, which will say email. And that'll be like a watermark text over it that'll say what it is. So there's our email. Let's check to see if that worked. Oh, doesn't like it because we don't have a handle submit yet. So let's stub that out. Sorry, I went pretty fast with it. So I look at the error, it says line 1021, handle submit is not defined. So then I say, okay, I know what that is. I called the function handle submit, and I didn't define what that function was. So I can go back to the component and say, okay, yeah, handle submit right there. It doesn't know what to do there. So we need to say what that is. So let's stub this out, which that means we're just creating a function that exists but doesn't do anything yet, so that it removes that error. Boom. Okay, cool. So we've got the email. We've got our nav bar. If we want to type something into it, we can say it. Let's see if that works. Well, at least it's letting us put things into it. I don't think it's not doing anything with the server yet because we haven't put anything in the handle submit. But we are able to type our name because this is the on change. So when I type something here, on change fires and it changes the state so that the email equals D. And then as soon as I type the next character, the on change sets the email to D at, to whatever the value is. And does anyone want me to go over more of that? Like I could show you like a console log of how that works. Is that helpful? Okay, I'll move on. So we're just going to do the exact same thing for the password. And this says password. You can add like validations here, you know, so if you want to check like whether the email is a certain, you can do like a regex or regular expression validation, which like checks the characters in the email, and it actually already does that on the in the Devise token auth side. But if you want to do like front end validations, you can do that later. So it won't let you submit it unless the email has like an @ sign, a .com or whatever. But that's kind of later on. Let's do the handle submit. So handle submit on this, you have to do e.prevent default, I believe. Otherwise, it refreshes the page. I think, oh, look at that. We're going to change that the value is not email here. See, I had them both at email, so that when I changed it, it was trying to change both at the same time. So let's change that to password. I think you need e.prevent default. I'm just going to throw it in to make sure. And then what we want is we want to be able to access the auth provider. So we need to we need to use context. So let's call this constant auth context. Yeah, I guess that works, but let's lowercase it. Equals use context. Didn't import it, so let's make sure we import it. And then we are using context from the auth context. Trying not to get confused because I'm doing the name, the lowercase here. This is a variable, and this is the name of the context that we've created in the auth provider. So there's that. And then once we can access that, we can say auth context dot. Now, how do we figure out what it is? Let's go back to our auth provider. And what we want is handle login. So we can use that. And then we need to pass in the email value and the password. And also we need props.history. So we can go back to the page that we were previously on. And then that looks good. So let's see if this is working. Okay, couple errors. So E is not defined, props is not defined. Okay, so let's go back and look at that. So we've got, so we need, okay, this is trying to access E here. It needs to be up here inside of the arguments for the function so that it knows what E is. This is the event. It's coming from the submit. And then props is not defined because we need props. This is actually, I think this is actually supposed to be coming from the auth context. .history. Let me check that. Is it? Let's see. Oh, no. That is props.history. So that's just the props of the, where are we logging? this is the property of the component. Okay, so let's see if this works. Okay, put my email in, password. Oh, see now there's one thing we need to change is the input type on this form. So it's a password, not a text form. So let's change that here. And now it'll start out. Log in. Okay, so something's happening. We don't really know what. I would say that it probably has to do with our server at this point, because we haven't really set up how the server is communicating with the front end. Because we're logging in, and if we want to kind of debug this, we can say, we can go into the auth context, and then in the handle login with the auth provider, we can say, okay, what's going on here? Are we hitting this? Handle login, axios.post. So we see that we're here. If we really want to like make sure that we're getting here, we can console log, handle login, just kind of say that this is being hit. So let's go ahead and look in our console. So, okay, this is helpful. So we can now see, okay, we've hit that handle login, and we're trying to post this 404 not found. So this means that the server is not connected. 404 actually doesn't mean the server's not connected. It can't find where this route is. So maybe we have the route wrong, or maybe the server doesn't know. So let's first we can check our routes, but we kind of know it's working. But we actually skipped a step at the beginning, which to make it work. Does anyone remember what step I skipped? I'll give you a hint. It has to do it in the package.json. Okay, I'll show you. So in the package.json, we need to tell the Rails server where the requests are coming from. So, yes, that's right. So so there's two package.jsons in a file. So one of them that we're working with here is the one in the it's not on the Rails side, it's on the JavaScript, the front end side, so the React side. So we're telling the React side to handle all of our API requests and send them out to this proxy. So this is for development only. It actually doesn't matter in production, but it gets handled differently at that point. But we're going to go to localhost 3001, and that'll tell us, okay, we've got our Rails server running on 3001. Any of these API addresses, we want to send them to 3001, because that's where all of our routes are going. Like if we type in localhost 3001, this is where our routes are. Okay, cool. So now let's see if this works. So we've got this, login, not found. Okay, so the one thing about updating your package.json is you always have to restart your Yarn server. Mine should have crashed by now. I'm not sure why it didn't. But let me restart it, because it actually reads that file right when it first starts to check like what it needs to do and how everything's configured. So when you restart your server, it'll rerun that package.json. Okay, so now it's saying, all right, error. It doesn't like this, how I've written this out. JSON is a very particular thing. It has to be written exactly a certain way. If I go back to it, I'll see that I have an error here, and if I look, I've actually forgotten a comma. So now the error's gone. Hopefully it works. And let's look at both our server over here and here. So let's try and log in. And it says connection refused. That's a good sign. That means we probably need to register. Maybe. Let's see. I don't think I started my server yet. Let's try this here. Okay. Login, unauthorized. That means we haven't gotten in. Okay. The connection refused was actually saying that the site wasn't connected to the backend. The front wasn't connected to the backend yet. But we need to register first because we haven't seen any users. So let's register a new user. Let's try and register this user. And oh, it logged us in and it showed the home page. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of how it works. We've basically gone from nothing to creating a Rails app to setting up the Devise token auth, creating a React app, and adding in the necessary components to get it to render out this Nav Bar, which is very unstyled right now, and then a basic home page is a protected route. So when you log out, it will show that. Now it's not completely working. Something is going on here. When we sign out, it's giving us a 404. So let's take a look at that. Let's see. Delete not found. So we can't sign out. So let's go to our, oh, I know what happened. On our nav bar, we never finished building that out. So in our nav bar, the on click, handle click, maybe we did, handle logout. Let's make sure that we are actually getting this. Actually, let's put this console log in the logout. Provider, steal it from here. I'm pretty sure we're hitting it because it was giving us that error. Let's see here. Okay, log in. Log in works, log out. 404 not found. I wonder what this could be. So I think it might have a hard time with the route here. Sign out. That looks good. This is our delete. Auth sign out. Let's see. Maybe I'm going to try restarting my Rails server to see if that helps. Refresh the page, log in. I got same thing. So it's, let's see, we are able to, I wonder why it's saying that, because we've got unauthorized token here, and then it can't find the route to log out. So give me a second. Let me look at it. I want to see if it's actually, oh, so it actually is logging us out, I think. If we log in and then we log out, and we refresh, it looks like we're logged out. I think it might be the props.history is having the problem. Log in, log out. Request failed. Check this.
Why does it say delete?
Because it's the Axios request is called .delete. And so you're actually, what it is doing is actually deleting like a session. So it stores like a session in the database that you're signed in. Like it'll create like an item in the database saying this user is signed in. And then when you sign out, it deletes that. So it's using an Axios delete call. Let me see if I can get Nick to, or Harlan to come look at this.
Okay, because another thing that I noticed is, I'm not sure of this, but I noticed that on line 36, that res is dimmed.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a good point. So the reason that it isn't like lit up like this one is because you're not calling it anywhere else here. So we're actually just like we're taking the results or the response, and then we're doing this, but we're not using that response for anything here. We could console log the response, and it'll say like whatever we put, whatever the controller says. Like if you want to do console log response, it'll probably say, so if we log out, I think it's right here, 42, request failed.
But if
So
you
it is
look in
actually,
Rails, in the Rails terminal on 44, it's saying it's not found. Excuse me, 404 is saying it's not found.
oh yeah, yeah, destroy. So, okay. Yeah, I wonder, let me look.
Could you look at the routes again? Can you pull up that screen so I can see that?
Sure, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So, hey, Danny.
Okay.
Are you sure you're currently signed in already?
I believe so. Let me, that's a good question. If I log in, and then I log in, it's showing this is a protected route,
Mm-hmm.
but then I do see this here. So,
Validate token there. Yeah, did you put in the init middleware thing package?
I thought I did, but maybe I didn't. That is probably what I'm missing. Yes, good call. That is exactly it. So yes, here's the Devise Axios. Thank you, Nick. In effect, you need to access this init middleware, and then it should work. Log in. Boom. Sweet. All right, that's it for today. Yeah, and if you're following along in that tutorial, like, and you follow the steps, and you'll get to that init middleware step, and you won't miss that one. But other than that, that's kind of the basics of how you set it up. And as you can see, it's very like particular. You have to do everything a certain way. But we'll work on this in the future and kind of build out like credit action for something. We'll go over like style components or whatever else you guys kind of need help on. But there you go. We'll see you in a second for the wrap up. You don't have any final questions? Okay, thanks for coming.
Will you push that to Git?
Yeah, for sure. All right, see you guys.
Thanks, man. That was awesome.
You're welcome.